Hit it already. Okay, gentlemen. Sorry for the delay, but it is Erev Shabbat, and I'm well aware that Lag BaOmer is behind us. But I cannot withhold a beautiful chidush that I saw on the day of Lag BaOmer itself. You know, Hashem sometimes he opens up your eyes, he allows you to see certain chidushim. And I said to myself, if I can't share it, then it's not worth me seeing. So I decided that I'm going to share the Hidush, even though Lag BaOmer is behind us. But anyway, I could say that, you know, the influence of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is applicable the entire week of his yahrzeit. It doesn't have to be dafka on the day, but it extends throughout the entire week. But not only that, we could also connect it to Parashat HaShavua. Parashat HaShavua is Behar-Bechukotai. We have a double header, and we're still in the week of Lag BaOmer. So, with your permission, I want to say a Hidush. So if you look at the very first source, Kaf HaChaim, as well as many other Achronim, the Hida, Rabbi Yonatan Eibeshitz, the Shlach Gadol, they all talk about the importance of the day of celebrating Lag BaOmer. And he says as follows, for source number one, Kaf HaChaim, Yom Lag LaOmer Yarbeh Simcha Lechavod Rashbi. On Lag BaOmer, we have to increase our Simcha in honor of the Hilula, which is a yahrzeit of Rashbi HaKadosh, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Ki hu yom Hilula dilei v'noda shirotzono hu shismechu b'yom zeh kiyadua. And it's know that his ratzon, his will is that we celebrate on this day. And the question begs to be asked, why is it that we so happy on Lag BaOmer? Lag BaOmer, if we're commemorating the death of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, so since when are we happy when a tzaddik passes away? I would think it should be the opposite. When a tzaddik passes away, we should be sad about it. So why is it then that we commemorate Lag BaOmer as a happy day if this was indeed the day of his death? Even though that is something that is controversial, but still, you know, a lot of big rabbis, they hold that this was the day of his death. So what bemet are we celebrating? And it's well known also that you know, the pilgrimage that happens to Meron in Lag BaOmer is in the thousands, and maybe not this year because of the whole safety issue, but a lot of people, they go to Lag BaOmer. When I was 18 and I was yeshiva in Israel, we went to Lag BaOmer. The buses had to park on the highway. We're talking about the buses parked miles away. You have to walk just to get to the tziyun because that's how many people are there. So they come along and they make they make this big deal about it. And the question is why? So on a simple level, I believe that this is the reason, that any time that a person goes to visit a tzaddik, the tzaddik, obviously you're trying to get close to your creator through the rabbi that's buried, right? The whole goal is trying to get closer to Hashem. That is why they're there. But how did they do so? How is visiting the kever of a righteous man get you closer to God? So I think this is the following idea, that every single tzaddik has their midah. What's a midah in English? That would be like a character or a quality. Every tzaddik has a quality that they have exemplified in their life. And when a person goes to visit a righteous man on the day of his yahrzeit, he sort of gives over that quality to the people that come to visit him. So therefore, based on the quality that you have, people visit the kever in order to get that hashpa'ah, get that influence from this man, from this holy and righteous person. They could use that as a conduit to serve God through that holy man. So therefore, everybody visits the tziyun of Lag BaOmer, tziyun of Rashbi, in order to get this influence of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. But the question is, what is his influence? What is this midah? What is his quality that he had? And what are we trying to connect to by visiting his grave and getting close to our Creator through that? That's the question that I have. If everybody, based on that premise, that every tzaddik has his quality, and through that quality we want to connect to him and then to our Creator, what is the quality of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that we all try to connect to? Why do we visit? Why do we celebrate? Why is it such a happy day? Yehi Shem and bonfires and barbecues and auctioning off very, very cheap but expensive arak in order to make sure that everybody needs to make sure to get this connection to the tzaddik. And the question is, what is midah? What are we trying to do? So there's a famous Gemara on Brachot. The Gemara finds itself on Daf Lamed Hey. It's in source number 2. The Gemara is trying to understand what is the proper path that a person should take in his life. What should be his daily schedule? Should a person just devote himself all day to learning, be an avrech kolel, every single day from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night, 12 hours learning in yeshiva, and then parnasah, Hashem will take care of parnasah? Or is it more proper to kind of like find like a middle ground? The middle ground would be you would learn a little bit in the morning, you would learn a little bit at night, but in the daytime you have to devote to your parnasah, you have to support your family. Again, there is no such opinion that all work. It's either learning all day or working and learning. But there's no such opinion that says there's no such thing as learning. I have to devote myself 100,000% to parnasah. Doesn't work that way. The only two legitimate opinions are either working and learning or just learning. What is the proper derech for a person to do? So it's a machloket between Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and Rabbi Ishmael. And it's all based on how to interpret the Pesukim in the Kriyat Shema. It says in the Kriyat Shema, Ve'asafta deganecha. What does that mean? You shall gather your grain. And based on the understanding of Ve'asafta deganecha, that you have to gather your grain, how much time do we have to devote to gathering my grain? My grain is, I guess the metaphor would be parnasah. So for how much do I have to devote? How much of my time do I have to give over to Asafta deganecha, to gathering this grain? So according to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he says, nothing, don't devote any time. Really, a person should sit and learn all day, and once you learn all day, what's going to be parnasah? It's okay, the asafta deganecha is going to happen on its own. God will provide for you. If you have a certain level of bitachon, God will provide for you, and therefore you don't have to do much. That is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. However, and therefore what? Maybe because Abdu Hishtadlut, you're saying. Okay, maybe that could be the interpretation of Rabbi Ishmael. He comes along and he says that no, you have to do something in between. You have to do your Hishtadlut, you have to work, you have to go to the workforce, you have to go to the train, you have to do something, and then you have to learn when you have the time, and Hashem will provide. Hashem will provide because you are doing an hishtadlut. Says the Gemara in source number 2, Brachot Daf Lamed Hey, ve'asafta deganecha, you shall gather your grain. Says the first opinion, Haneheg behem minhag derech eretz. You have to do what is socially accepted. Socially accepted it is to go to work. That is the way a person provides for his family. Therefore, you have to do your due diligence. You have to bring home parnasah at the same time. When you're free, in the morning and at night, you shall open the book and you're going to learn. That is the opinion of Rabbi Ishmael. However, says Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Omer, Bizman she'Yisrael osin u'sano shemakom, melachtan na'asit ayidei acherim. At the time that the Jewish people are doing the will of God, they are obedient, then God says, you don't have to do anything. You could just devote yourself 100,000% to learning. Again, I cut out piece of the Talmud. Really, Rabbi Ishmael said, well, how is it going to be that a person's going to devote himself to work? The moment a person begins working, that's going to take up all his time. He's going to have to go over there, he's going to go over here, he's going to meet with this client, he's going to take that client. So therefore, you're so busy with work, it's going to take up all your time, you're never going to have a time to just sit down and learn. Therefore, machloket, this is a fundamental debate between the rabbis. What is the proper way? Either working and learning or just learning. How am I going to make a parnasah? No problem. God is going to provide. So the way that the Rabbanim understand the opinion of Rashbi is, Rashbi's midah, Rashbi's quality, which is seen through this piece of Talmud, is his quality is a bitachon in Hashem when it comes to parnasah. That's exactly what it is. Because he clearly is telling you that you don't have to worry about your livelihood. If you dedicate your time to God, God will make sure you are provided for. It doesn't mean you're going to be rich, but at least the basic, the bare necessities, the minimum of bread and water, you're going to have. And obviously his opinion is consistent throughout Shas, because if his outlook is truly that God will provide, then what happened to him in the cave for 12 years, 13 years? Hashem clearly provided. Again, he wasn't working, he was only learning, and because of that, God made sure he had carob, he had some sort of vegetable inside the cave, he had water. On Shabbat, the Gemara says that the carob turned to dates. So therefore, he had something Chabot Shemat Kodesh. So therefore, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he was provided for. Again, you're not going to be rich, but his midah, his quality is bitachon in Hashem when it comes to parnasah. And anything that we do towards our parnasah, it's not really us that's doing it. We're just kind of going through the motions. But the truth is, it's God that's providing 100%. And that's a clear hashkafa that Torah demands us to know. That it's not our doing. Again, even though we're not subscribing to the school of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, even though we do go ahead and we do give it hishtadlut when it comes to our businesses, still, you have to know that it's not your doing that's providing the parnasah. It's all based on the blessing of Hashem. We're going through the motions, but the motions are almost pointless because God is providing. We're just doing so in order to show that God doesn't make open miracles. But nonetheless, our parnasah does not come from Him. You know those pamphlets that Rabbi Biederman, he comes out with every single week? It was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it was Parashat Harimot Kedushim. Well, I was flipping through one of these pamphlets, and Rabbi Biederman says as follows. He says that it says in the Torah, it says, Ish imo ve'aviv tira'u, that a person must fear his parents. So the question is, Rabotai, we're all parents here, and if we're not, we will be. What does it mean you must fear your parents? What is the gede? What is the requirement of fearing your parents? Says the rabbi, or says Rashi on the spot, what does it mean? You must not sit in your parents' place. In your father's seat, you shall not sit. That's under the category of ish imo va'aviv tira'o. So again, according to the regular understanding of that pasuk, it means do not sit in your father's place. Comes the Zohar HaKadosh, and he writes, it could be talking about your physical parents, but Abotai, who is the ultimate parent in the world? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God is. And therefore when it says, Ish imo va'aviv tira'o, that you have to fear your parents, and the meaning of fearing your parents means don't sit in his place, says the Zohar HaKadosh, don't sit in God's place either. Meaning to say, don't come along and think that you're doing ishtadlut, that you're walking, don't get in God's way while he's busy running your life. The bitachon and parnasah means that you understand that it's not coming from you, rather it's coming all from him. There's a famous mashal that Rabbi Dr. Twersky, he brings down in one of his books. Anybody know what Old Faithful is, Rabotai? Ronen, what's Old Faithful? It's a geyser. What's a geyser? It's also a difficult word for me to understand. What's a geyser? Rabotai, no? What's Old Faithful? A geyser is a natural water source that happens to take place every single, anywhere between 35 to 90 minutes in Wyoming. Old Faithful, Google it. It's actually a fascinating, it's one of the wonders of the world, where it's a natural, it's not a waterfall, it's a natural, it bursts out, it explodes. It explodes. Water volcano that explodes from the ground. It's the coolest thing. It happens every 30 to 90 minutes where just the ground just explodes and the water shoots up 120 feet in the air, and it's a tourist site. It's called Old Faithful. Says Rabbi Twersky that one time a couple of teenagers who experienced Old Faithful before, they're visiting with their parents. And they said to themselves, we know this already, we've seen it, and we want to play a prank on the couple of people who hadn't seen it yet. So what did they do? They went to the junkyard, and they got a really old steering wheel from a bus that broke down a long time ago, and it was set to be destroyed. So they took this big steering wheel, and as everybody was watching, they took the steering wheel, and they shoved it in the ground. And all of a sudden, right before Old Faithful explodes, they took the steering wheel, and they went like this. They started turning it. Turning it. Next thing you know, Old Faithful goes up in the air. So the people that were there said, listen, the whole thing is a gimmick. The whole thing is not even real because we thought it was a natural spring. Turns out it's a bunch of these kids that once they turn it, that's what makes the water explode. Says Rabbi Twersky, that entire thing is a mashal. Because the honest truth is, if you know what Old Faithful really is, it is a natural geyser. It is something that God is controlling. Yet these kids, they wanted to make believe that they were in control, but the fact that they were turning that wheel, it really didn't mean anything. So therefore, says Rabbi Twersky, the same thing is the understanding of our parnasah, that we only think we're doing something, we're just turning that wheel, but just like the wheel wasn't connected to anything, so to our efforts when it comes to making our livelihood and our sustenance, it's just a frivolous act. It's just going through the motions, but honestly, it's all a natural geyser, and God provides for everybody exactly what he needs. So I was in the bookstore today, and I was looking for other ideas to say on this piece, and I opened up Rabbi David Asher on his Living Emunah. And one of the first pages I opened up to, B'siyata Dishmaya, he brings another famous mashal that Rabbi Nachman ben Breslov brings, all about what does it mean that really God provides the parnasah. And he says that one time there were these two brothers. Abi, he goes, one time there was these two brothers, both of these brothers very, very wealthy. One of them was extremely cheap, but the other one was very, very generous, very benevolent. Anytime anybody came to him, he gave them tzedakah biyad rahaba. So one time these two brothers are in town and a traveler passes by. And the traveler asks people, listen, I'm alone, I'm traveling, I have no food. Is there any place that I could get a good meal to eat? So most people, they told him, yeah, you should go to this guy's house, pointing him to the direction of the benevolent brother. He's for sure going to give you. But the traveler mixed up places. Instead of going to the guy that gave money, he went to the cheap brother instead. And he knocks on the door, and the guy opens it. He goes, how can I help you? He goes, listen, I'm a traveler. I haven't eaten in a couple of days. Do you mind providing me with something to eat? And the brother says, sure, no problem. But I need a few chores done in my house first, if you could help me. The guy says, okay, fine, what he's going to ask me to do, Ray? Take out the garbage? I can take out the garbage. But for the next 4 hours, grueling hours, this traveler is remodeling the guy's house. He's taking the garbage out. He's washing the dishes. He's mopping the floors. He's moving furniture. After 4 long hours of working, he's saying, okay, fine, I've helped you a lot. Can I please have my meal? And the cheap brother says, the meal's not going to come from me. You have to go across the street to my brother's house, and he's going to provide you some dinner. So the guy gets up and he leaves. He knocks on the door and he says, the guy across the street told me to come to you to ask you for the dinner. And the brother says, no problem. He invites him inside, gives him something to eat. And after the guy finishes eating, he's very upset. He's clearly agitated on his face. And he says, what's bothering you? And he says, listen, he goes, I worked for 4 hours for this yo-yo across the street. I thought that 4 hours of work would give me a little more than just one meal of a dinner. So he tells me, he goes, you seem to be misunderstanding. He goes, the work that you did in my brother's house has zero connection to the dinner that I gave you. I would have given you dinner for free despite all the work that you have done. And therefore, the fact that he made you work and the fact that I give you dinner, it's 2 completely separate episodes. You working for him has nothing to do with the dinner that I provided you for tonight. Says Rabbi Asher, that is the mashal. The nimshal is obvious. That sometimes when we work and we go to the city and we make a parnasah and we go to the office, that has nothing to do with our parnasah. The fact that we're working is for maybe a punishment that we have to fulfill or some sort of curse that God gave over to mankind, but it has nothing to do with the parnasah that we make. So therefore, says the rabbis, the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that was his midah. His quality of character was, he exemplified this idea that God provides its bitachon in parnasah. Just like the Gemara Barachot tells us that he said you should dedicate yourself all day to learning, just like he spent 13 years in the cave, his midah is the midah of parnasah in bitachon. Are we clear so far, Rabotai? Yeah, are we clear? Because the next piece is the famous inconsistency in Kriyat Shema. We read Shema every single day, and therefore this should bother every single one of you if you haven't heard it already. In the very first paragraph of Ve'ahavta, what do we say? Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha bechol levavecha, with all your heart, bechol nafshecha, with all your soul, bechol me'odecha, with all your money. Right? So it seems like the Torah is speaking to the individual. Bechol levavecha doesn't say levavchem, it's levavecha, which is individual. Bechol nafshecha, again, individual, bechol me'odecha, also individual. But then in the very next parasha, v'ayam shamua, what does it say? Le'ahava et Hashem Elokechem, right? Bechol levavchem, bechol nafshechem. So far it sounds like it's talking in plural, lashon rabim, but then it leaves out me'odecha. There's no such thing as mo'adechem. And the question is why? Why in the first parasha it's singular, levavecha, nafshecha, me'odecha. In the second parasha, levavchem, nafshechem. But mo'adechem is inconspicuously missing. What's the answer, gentlemen? That would be it, but it's not there. And the question is why? The question is why? Tshuva? Ken? That's levavecha. I'm not asking about that. The hazak, you're correct. You're correct. But
when you fight it and you come in the end, what?
Evanti, I get it. But why me'odecha? Why is me'odecha not written v'ayam shamoa?
Every place you go, and you
Ulai. But the Beit Levi writes that the distinction between the first parasha v'ayam shamoa and the first distinction of the hayafta v'ayam shamoa is talking about these 2 schools of thought. Whether you belong to the school of Rabbi Ishmael again, what was his opinion? His opinion was that it's more proper for a person to work and learn because most people do not have enough bitachon to come along and say, I hereby sanctify or sacrifice my money on behalf of my Creator. And therefore, since in V'ayayim Shamoa it's talking to the public, which most people do, which is the plural, which is Lashon Rabim, it only says, Bechol levavecha, Bechol levavchem, Bechol nafshechem, because that's talking to the, not to the individual, but to the public. And to the public, it's not going to say Mu'adechem to your money, only certain type of people. But in the first parasha, when it says Bechol levavecha, Bechol nafshech, Bechol me'odecha, again in Lashon in Lashon Yachid, in the singular tense, because according to the Gemara, a few people can do like Rashbi, like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and fulfill this part of the Torah, that even my money, not only can I sacrifice my heart for you, God, not only can I sacrifice my soul for you, Hashem, but I can also sacrifice the most important, which is my money. I can come along and say, I will dedicate my entire day towards your service, and I expect my needs to be fulfilled. Therefore, the discrepancy, the inconsistency between the two parashiyot, how there is no mo'adecha in the plural form, is because the plural form is talking to the rabbim, is talking to the public. Most people cannot sacrifice their money for God, and therefore only the singular, only the mo'adecha can come along and sacrifice, but most other people cannot. That is the famous Hidush of the Beit Levi, but that's what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that is his quality. His midah is he could come along and he could quit his job, he could run to the cave 13 years, and God will provide, because he is of the school that says Hashem will provide me bitachon and I don't have to do anything. Gentlemen, are we clear? I need your focus on the next part of the class, because it is... What's Hillel? It's Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Yeah, gentlemen, are we holding? So therefore, based on this understanding, Rabotai, Lag BaOmer, which is the day of Rashbi, it represents his quality. And again, altogether, what is the quality of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? What is it? Full bitachon in Hashem when it comes to Parnasah. Hashem will provide, no problem. But says the Hatam Sofer, the truth is that this day of Lag BaOmer, it was a day that's misugal. It was a lucky day of the providing of sustenance, Parnasah, since almost the beginning of time. And he explains fascinating. He writes, gentlemen, you tell me, what's the answer to the question? Which day did the Jewish people leave Egypt?
Thursday.
Okay, not day, I meant date. What date did we leave Egypt? Pesach, which is? The 15th of Nisan. 15th of Nisan, we left Pesach. Says the Torah that the Jewish people, we took with ourselves enough food, enough sustenance to last for 1 month. You can imagine how much food that was. We're talking about 3 million people. You need a lot of food to feed that many mouths. So therefore, the provisions that we took with ourselves when we left Egypt was exactly for a month. What happened after the month? Everything ran out. I'm reading what it says in the Torah, Rabotai. Look at source number 4. This is in Parashat Bishalach. Torah tells us, "Vayis'u me'elim." We left a place called Elim. "Vayavo kol adat b'nei Yisrael midbar Sin, asher ben Elim uben Sinai." We came to the place called Midbar Sin. When did we come on this date, gentlemen? Which date was it? Torah tells us, Parashat Bishalach, "Bechamisha asar yom lechodesh sheni." It was on the 15th day of the second month. First month is Nisan, second month is Iyar. So it was on the 15th day of Iyar that we came to this place, and that's when the Torah says, "L'tzeita meretz Mitzrayim, vayulonu kol adat b'nei Yisrael al Moshe v'al Aaron b'midbar l'hamid kol hakahal hazeh b'ra'av." They said, did you bring us to the desert that we should die out of starvation? So 30 days after they left Egypt, the provisions last for a month long. After that, they told Moshe Rabbeinu, did you bring us here in order to die? So therefore, it was only 3 days, 30 days. So therefore, we left 15th of Nisan, we complained on the 15th of Iyar. Says the Hatam Sofer, which day, Rabotai, which day did the man begin to fall for the people? Says Hatam Sofer, it happened 3 days after they complained. So count, if they complained on the 15th of Iyar, 16th of Iyar, 17th of Iyar, 18th of Iyar. The 18th of Iyar is when the man fell from heavens. The 18th of Iyar is AKA, which day? Lag BaOmer. So therefore, says Hatam Sofer, this day is extremely connected with the Midah of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, because just like Rashbi, his quality was bitachon in Hashem when it comes to Parnasah. Therefore, I could dedicate myself to learning all day. I could be in the cave writing the Zohar for 13 years straight, and God will provide. Says Hatam Sofer, this day makes sense. Lag BaOmer, which is the day that represents Rashbi as the Baal bitachon of Parnasah, Turns out that almost from the beginning of time, before the Torah was even given, the 18th of Iyar, which is Lag BaOmer, was a day that was set to provide the sustenance of Am Yisrael. Hashem shows that on this day, no matter where we are, we could be in the desert with no kiosks. There could be in the desert with no food, no nothing. God says, no matter where you are, no matter how many people you are, I will provide you with the best food, and I guarantee you will be satisfied. So therefore, it's a tremendous connection between what Lag BaOmer represents as Rashbi and what does Lag BaOmer represent in the first time that we actually took part in this holy food called the man. So far, so good, gentlemen. The next, Oh, you're saying because they didn't have. But God said that this day is going to be misugal for parnasah. It's going to be misugal for parnasah. Hence, I provide. Okay, fine. Concentration as follows. I need to tell you the Arizal to drive this point home, because the Arizal is fascinating. Arizal says as follows: it will be very beneficial if you had a sheet in front of you, just so you could look to appreciate what we're going to say. If anybody needs more sheets, they're right here. Look what he writes. David, you want to pass this down just in case anybody needs? Says Rabbeinu Ari. We know, Rabutai, that God has many names, and we spoke about this dozens of times. And certain names of God, they perform different what? Different functions. Rahamim, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, Elokim, Din, a bunch of other names of God that if you put little words together and little letters together, they form certain shemot, very holy names. And we know that if a person knows how to use these names in specific situations, they can help him. Like Moshe Rabbeinu, when he killed the Mitzri, he used the name of God. When it comes to the name of Refuah Shteima, it's the name of God. Everything, there's a name of God that we use, forming different letters together in order to make a name of God. Says Rabbeinu Ari, the name of God that we all know of judgment, of Deen, the name that we don't like to see because it's not a negative name, but it's a name that brings upon judgment. The opposite of mercy is Shem Elokim. Says the Arizal, that our goal, one of the goals in life, is to make what's called a mituk. Gentlemen, what is a mituk? A mituk is a sweetening. You must make a sweetening of the name of God. Elokim, we have to change that name and add a little sugar to it. Like a person has a cup of coffee that's very bitter, black cup of coffee, very bitter. Add sugar, make it sweet in order to make it drinkable. Shem Elokim is a bitter name. Therefore, how do you make a mituk on the Shem Elokim in order to make it sweet? Says the Arizal, there are many ways to do this, but says the Arizal in this specific essay, he says that if a person takes the letters before Elokim, the letters in the Aleph Bet, the ones that spell out Aleph Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, the ones before Elokim, that's how you make a mituk. So it says the Rabbeinu Ari, it's very simple, let's do it together. Each letter one at a time. The first letter of Elokim is an Aleph. What's before the letter Aleph? Azaku Baruch. So did Rabbi speak about this today? When was this? Okay, so I'm going to say it again for those of us who didn't hear. Says, so you have it on the board. Elokim, Aleph, there's nothing before Aleph. Nothing before Aleph, Aleph stays the same. So therefore, you have Aleph stays the same as Aleph. The next one is a Lamed. Lamed, the letter before Lamed is a Chaf. So therefore, keep the Chaf there. Very good. After Lamed, you have Hey. So before Hey is Dalid, put the Dalid. So far, we have Chaf, Dalid, and then you have a Yud. Before the Yud is a Tet. So far, you have Chaf, Dalid, Tet. And the Mem Sofit, before Mem Sofit is a regular Mem. So therefore, the Aleph and the Mem stay the same because there's no such thing as letters before that. But what's called in the Lashon of the Arizal of the Lehi. The Lehi is the Lamed and the Hey and the Yud. Those do have letters from before. Therefore, you change it to a Chaf, to a Dalid, and to a Tet. That spells out the name. The way he pronounces it is Akadat. That's why if you look at the title of today's shiur, The Secret of Akadat, it's really Akadat with a mem, but you're not supposed to say the full name because you never know what could happen. And therefore he says it's Akadat with a mem. Or the way he puts it, it's a very strong shem. It's one of the names of God. The way that he puts it is, if you come along and you take the gematria of these letters, so he writes, take the gematria, not of the Aleph and the Mem, we'll do that in a second, but the gematria of the Chaf and the Dalid and the Tet, we can do it together. Chaf is 20, Tet is 9, and Dalid is 4, altogether 33. 33 is Lag, Hazak Baruch. So he writes that This name of God in the language that he uses is called Em Gal. Em because the first letter and the last letter, which is an aleph and a mem, Em, and then the Gal is the gematria of the Chaf, the Dalid, and the Tet. So the name that he calls is called Em Gal. Are we good so far? Do we understand what that means? Look at source number 5, the Arizal. Mitok hadin shel Shem Elokim akadat mem, or the way he refers to it as Em Gal. But then he takes it one step further. And he says that if you take the gematria of Em Gal, which is very simple, Em, Aleph Mem is 41. Gal, you told me before, is 33. So 33 plus 41 is 74. 74, that number might not mean anything to anybody here, but he says it's a very significant number. Because if I could find somewhere else in the Torah where the name 74, the number 74 defies a topic, then I know that I'm connecting to this. I'm manifesting myself in this inyan, and that's why it's going to be up for grabs. And he says, I found it, says the Arizal. If you look at source number 6, which is a pasuk in Yeshaya, Torah tells us, Bidchu b'Hashem adei ad, ki beya Hashem tzur olamim. Therefore he says, it's no coincidence, Rabotai, that when it says Bidchu b'Hashem adei ad bigematria is also, ayin is 70, Dalit is 4, so 74 altogether. Says the rabbi, it's no coincidence that the name of God of Em Gal, or Akadat with the Mem, it's the gematria of 74, which is the gematria of Ad. In order to tell me, Bidchu b'Hashem adei ad, the name of God of Akadat, or Em Gal, as the way he refers to it, is the name that's misugal to pick up bitachon, but specifically in the type of bitachon that Rabbi had, which is the bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu when it comes to your parnasah. And therefore, it's also no coincidence that sometimes in gematria, not only could you add up the letters together, you could also add the word itself. So if the word itself, akadat, plus the word, so you have 74 plus the word, altogether is 75. 75 is the exact gematria as bitachon. Because these two things, they're intimately connected. That's what, although, by the way, also side point, when God told Abraham Avinu, Lech Lecha, right, go traveling, and I promise you, I'm going to bless you. You're going to have parnasah, you're going to have be the leader of a great nation. What age was Abraham when God promised him this? The answer is he was 75. Because 75 and bitachon, especially when it comes to bitachon of parnasah, those two are intimately connected. And therefore, the midah of Rashbi is, unlike Ba'omer, we come along and we connect to Rashbi, whose midah is bitachon, whose day is man, again, which is bitachon, and whose shem is Em Gal, which again represents Bidchu b'Hashem adei ad, which is the connection to bitachon. I think the cherry on top of all this, he writes that with Yaakov Avinu, when he was running away from Lavan, and God promised him a lot of also, he promised to sustain him, and he says, Yaakov Avinu makes the statement, Im yeh Hashem imadi ushmarani, Natani beged l'bosh ve'lechem le'echol. And finally, when he makes it alive out of Lavan, he builds a monument. And the Torah calls that monument a very specific name, Hazaku Baruch. If you look in the very last source in Bereshit, source number 7, Vayikra lo Lavan yagar sahaduta, ve'Yaakov kara lo Gal Ed. Again, these words that we keep on using over and over in Gal Ed. The Gal is the 33, and the Ed, which is the 74, all saying that Yaakov Avinu, he owes this salvation that he got from God. Again, specifically salvation when it comes to parnasah and sustenance, it all has to do with the Borei Olam. When a person has a certain amount of bitachon in Hashem, Hashem says, the more bitachon you have in me, the less you have to work. But again, even if you are working, like Rab Nachman and Reb Eslov said, like Rabbi Torsi said in his mashal of the Old Faithful and the geyser, he said, it only looks like we're going through the motions, but the truth is, it's all really God providing us, and we're just doing something that we have to because of Hishtadlut. And I think this pishat of Rashbi and Bitachon, and the day of Lag Ba'omer, which is Man, which is Gal Ed, which is Akadat, it's appropriate that we read it specifically on this week's parasha. Lag Ba'omer will always fall out in Parashat Behar. Because Parashat Behar, I think the overwhelming theme is Bitachon and Parnasah, because the whole thing talks about Shemitah. And Shemitah is that we're basically coming along and we're leaving our lands fallow, absolutely empty, no work. And God says, when you do that, I promise you, I guarantee you that you're going to have parnasah not only for the 7th year in which you do not work, but also the 8th year, because it takes some time to get the land back to its original form. And sometimes, Rabotai, God will promise you even in the 9th year, because in certain situations where Shemitah falls out in the 49th year, the 50th year, which is called Yovel in the Torah, Yovel is also a Shemitah year. So therefore, not only in the 7th year you're not working, also in the 8th year during Yovel you're not working, and in the 9th year, by the time it gets everything to start up again, God says you'll have a 300% increase. And again, if you ask anybody that doesn't have a Torah hashkafa, they'll tell you it doesn't make any sense. How could I close up my store, and from that store that I closed, not from the store, the extra store that I had that I'm keeping open, will I have parnasah? From the dafka, the place that I closed. The way they say is less, in this case, less is more. Because if I close up that shop and God promised me from that shop, you're going to have parnasah, most people that are into economics will tell you that is impossible. You cannot close down a store and expect to have livelihood from it. But Shemitah tells me that bitachon and parnasah, Hashem guarantees that if you do this, you're going to get better luck. And again, even though nobody here has a field, I'm not talking about it, and no one's leaving their field fallow. So maybe not in the macro sense are we observing Shemitah, but maybe in the micro sense of Shabbat Kodesh, which was also the 7th day, that has to be driven home. That even though, again, the day that I take off, it shouldn't make sense. If I'm not going to work, why should I make money? But Hashem says, yet, if you do so, it's almost a guarantee. 100%. I saw a fantastic story from Rabbi El-Karif in Esas Mir Matecha. With this, we're going to end. He tells a story about one time there was a rabbi. His name was Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Grossman. Morty, this is not Rabbi Yitzhak David Grossman. This is Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Grossman. Different guy. And he says that one time when he was the chief rabbi of a place called Elad. And he says there was a guy in the community. His name was Efi Hanan. Efi Hanan loved Judaism, but he wasn't the most religious Jew. And of course, Efi, along with a bunch of other guys in the community, they were farmers. That was their job. So he says one day, right before the Shemitah year, Rabbi Grossman got up and he gave a whole drasha on how a person has to keep Shemitah. And he went through all the sources and how much blessing you're going to get. After the shiur finished, Efi, who is not a religious man, comes up to Rabbi Grossman with tears in his eyes. He says, Rabbi, you convinced me. You convinced me I'm going to keep Shemitah this year, but I need a guarantee from you. In the shiur, you spoke about how great God is and He's going to provide, but I need a personal guarantee that I'm not going to run out of money. So now Rabbi Grossman finds himself in a very sticky situation because, the Torah says, the Torah guarantees, but it's almost always based on the person himself. If the guy has sin, let's say, what's called chet gorem, it could be that the Torah guarantees you something, but if you're not such a great guy, maybe the guarantee won't come true. So now he's in a predicament. What do I do? This guy is telling me he's going to keep Shemitah, but he's asking me for a guarantee. A guarantee is something I cannot give. So what do you do when you are in a big safek like this? What do? You go ask the biggest rabbi of the generation. So who did he go ask? He went to ask Rabbi Eliashiv. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Eliashiv, what do? I have this guy in my community. He's telling me Shemitah, but he wants a guarantee. And Rabbi Eliashiv told him, he goes, you're right. You can't give him a guarantee because you never know what type of skeletons he has in his closet. But he says, what you can guarantee him is, he won't come to lose because of this. The language he uses is, הבטחה זו נאמרה לכלל, היחיד אינו מובטח שיזכה לברכה, אולם דבר אחד אתה יכול לומר לו, you can tell him one item, הקדוש ברוך הוא לא ישאיר אותך לבד. God will not leave you alone, תבטיח לו שהוא יראה סייעתא דשמיא עצומה. He's going to experience a tremendous amount of divine providence. That's what he told him. So Rabbi Grossman gets excited. He goes back to the guy. He tells him what Rabbi Eliashiv says, thinking that Efi Hanan won't buy it. But the truth was, Efi ate it up. And that year in Shemitah, he got rid of everything. He sold all his tractors. He fired all his workers. All the documents he backdated. And he really committed to keeping the Shemitah like he never saw before. And the rabbi was very impressed. But what happened? Motzei Shemitah comes along, and now it's time to plant. It's very hard to leave a field that's yours. Imagine you have a field that's miles long, and the whole year you're just watching it, hefker, and the kotzim are growing, and it's dirty, and it's not being taken care of. It hurt, but this guy Efi, he kept to his guns. But Motzei Shemitah comes along. Says the story. What happens? במוצאי שנת השמיטה ניגש אפי אל הטרקטור, החל לעבד את האדמה, להכשיר אותו לזריעה. He began plowing this field to get it ready for planting. But what happened? He calls his supplier and he says, I need seed. I need seed to plant. And the guy told him, seed to plant? You're crazy. He goes, most guys, they planted already 2 months ago. He goes, we have no seed left. כעת עליו לדאוג לזרעים. העירו טלפון לאחד, שאל את השני. כולם צחקו עליו. עכשיו אתה בא, now you're coming, לא נשאר לנו כלום. אף אחד לא זורע עכשיו. כולם כבר זרעו לפני חודש וחצי. Everything is gone. What in the world am I supposed to do? So again, already the Reis is playing on his bitachon. He's saying, listen, you see what happened? After you kept the mitzvah, it didn't help you. You didn't experience the siyata d'shmaya that the rabbi was promising you. עיניו של אפי חשכו. לא ייתכן להשבית את שדות שנה נוספת. I can't just leave this alone again and hope to get merchandise next year. לאחר בירורים ומאמצים הגיע לידיו כמות ענקית של זרעי celery. What happened? After a lot of phone calls, he got a very big shipment of celery seeds. Again, not the best quality. לא היה מדובר בסחורה הכי טובה, אבל זה מה שיש. This is what I have. What do I do? Do I plant the celery or not? What am I supposed to do with thousands of pounds of celery? The rabbi promises you had to deshmaya, plant the celery. Next thing you know, he plants the celery in Bemet, bracha like you never believed. Stalks and stalks of gorgeous pieces of celery, but the problem is still there. I have merchandise, but I have nobody to sell it to. Who's going to buy so much celery? And all of a sudden, הזמן עבר, מועד הקציר הגיע, ערב אחד מקבל אפי חנן שיחת טלפון מאחד מענקי הייצוא בארץ. One day he gets a phone call, one of the big developers of the land of Israel. האם ניתן להשיג אצלך כמות גדולה של celery? He asks him, he goes, do you by any chance have any celery? שאל האיש, כאשר צליל של דחיפות בקולו, he sounded like בלחץ, like I really needed celery. Celery צחק אפי? כל היום אני רואה celery. All day I'm looking at celery. כמה אתה רוצה? He tells him. את כל הכמות שיש לך. I'll take everything that you have. אתה בטוח תמה אפי? מדובר בכמות עצומה. כמה שיש לך לא יספיק לי, אמר הכל מעבר לקו. Whatever you have, I guarantee you it's not going to be enough. מה קרה אפי? So what's going on? Who needs celery? He tells him. תראה, השיב האיש. האירופים מאוד אוהבים celery. The Europeans, they love their celery. כל מרק חם בחורף חייב להיות עם celery. They make tons of soup, and the soup's gotta have carrots and celery. בשבוע שעבר התרחש כל קוד נוראי וכל יבול הסלרי נהרס. Everything that their previous celery supplier, it was so cold that everything got ruined. האירופים מוכנים לשלם $4 לקילו. Effie said, $4 a kilo? I could charge 3 shekel per kilo. You're giving me $4 per kilo? $4 בכל כמות שתביא לי, אני אקח. במוצאי אותה שנה, לא היה אחד שצחק על אפי חנן. Not one guy laughed at Effie no more. כולם ראו בחוש את ברכת השמיטה. אפי קנה מכונית מרסדיס ומשולחת ויוקרתית. He bought a gorgeous Mercedes Benz, המרסדיס של שמיטה היה קורא לו. He used to call it, this is the Mercedes of שמיטה. להודיע לכולם ולפרסם את מה שכרה של מצוות השמיטה. אפי חנן שומר שמיטה לא היה יהודי חזק, יהודי מסורתי. He was a regular guy, wasn't a rabbi, didn't have peyot, didn't have a beard. והכן עזרת אותה גברות נפש, כיצד היה לו כוחות. זהו עניינה של שמיטה על הר סיני. That's why God always connects, the Pesukim always connect הר סיני to שמיטה. בערב שנת השמיטה מקבלים כוחות ומקבלים תעצומות נפש שיתקבל ובטוח בקדוש ברוך הוא שיספיק מזוננו, שידאג לנו לכל מחסורנו. God says, if you have the trust in me, I guarantee you it's going to happen. And therefore that is the connection between Rashbi, Lag BaOmer, the 18th of Iyar, Akadat, and Parashat HaShavua. All these things are giving the same exact theme, and the theme is bitachon and parnasah. That's why, to answer our original question, why do so many people go and travel to Rashbi and they dance by his kever? Pitrat HaTzadik is a sad time. Why are we so happy? The answer is because when you go to the kever of the tzaddik, you connect his midah, the midah bitachon and parnasah, which is something that I think we all need, including myself, much more. And again, it's not our efforts. It's not the hishadut we put in. We're just turning a wheel that's not connected, like Rabbi Twersky said. But bottom line is, when you have the bitachon and parnasah, God says, not only would I provide you but I'll provide you in a way that you didn't think was possible. Mercedes shel Shemitah. Shabbat Shalom u'Mubarach. Rabbi Hananya ben Akashom et Zakat U'Shhud Zakat Yisrael Lafika Harib Elahem